Some kings are good, some kings are bad, and some kings get murdered. This guy sure was. But why? Who was he? Who did he piss off to get shot? And why does this statue exude such swagger? Roll the intro. Hi, my name's Sarah, and I'm in Stockholm.
Because I live here.
But there's a lot of Swedish history that I don't know.
Because I live here.
Join me as I try to catch up on what I might have learned had I stayed in the land of my birth. Welcome to We've Got History. Once upon a time, I was forced by my friends to walk all over Stockholm while wearing a silly hat and sash, because apparently that's what bachelorette parties are. At some point, we ended up outside of this building. The Royal Opera House. The Royal Opera House was commissioned by King Gustav III, the statue we were looking at earlier, and completed construction in 1782. King Gustav was a lover of the fine arts and commissioned many other buildings and organizations, namely the Royal Dramatic Theatre. Well, that's all well and good. What does that have to do with how he died? Great question. The Opera House will be important later, but first, let's get to know Gustav. Gustav rose to power in 1771 and was coronated the 29th of May 1772. But what really marked the beginning of his reign was the coup d'etat he led 3 months later. At the time, Sweden was led by the Parliament, or the Riksdag, much like it is today. And again, like today, in certain places of the world, there were two main political parties. They were known simply as the Hats and the Caps. To keep the story simple and rolling along, because politics are boring and complicated, the Hats and the Caps argued constantly, making it impossible to get anything done. And frankly, everyone was getting sick of it, including the king. So he did something about it. Okay, boys, this government sucks and really needs a revamp. Who's with me? Hey, Parliament, you're surrounded, and I'm running this joint now.
Oh, nuts.
Post-coup Gustav took a tour of the city and was met by enthusiastic crowds cheering his name. Famous poet and musician Carl Michael Bellman even wrote a song in his honor, titled Toast to King Gustav. Gustav was a pretty popular king for a while. He had heard of this thing called enlightenment and was really digging its vibe. He poured time and money into the arts, limited the death penalty to fewer crimes, and even let Jews and Catholics into the country. Ooh, how progressive. Things were going well, until they weren't. Not everyone is going to like you, that's just a fact of life. Gustav caught wind of some of the things being said about him and decided to hold a press conference. From now on, no one's allowed to say anything mean about the royal family, ever. Public opinion took a real downturn from there. Sensing the need for damage control and good PR, Gustav tried to come up with a plan. I know! We'll go to war with Russia! Russia had been the big bad in Swedish books for years, and Gustav figured that nothing rallies the country together quite like a war. The problem was, Russia wasn't planning on attacking Sweden anytime soon, and you can't just declare a war willy-nilly, you have to convince Parliament first. But convincing Parliament takes far too long and is way too much work. If only we can make it look like Russia attacked us. Ah! Gustav gathered a group of Swedish soldiers and dressed them in Russian military garb. He then instructed them to pretend to attack a city near the border. Due cause now achieved, Gustav could declare his war on Russia. The war did not go well. The Swedish public was now even more upset than before, with much of the nobility speaking out and plotting against the king. In an attempt to squash rebellions and get a handle on things, Gustav gave more power to the monarchy and stripped the nobility of many old privileges. At this point, many considered him a tyrant and decided to take matters into their own hands. Members of the nobility came together and formed a conspiracy to kill the king. They chose to act at a masked ball held at the Royal Opera House on the 16th of March, 1972. Earlier in the evening, Gustav received a letter warning him that there would be an attempt on his life. However, Gustav had received letters like this before and decided to ignore it completely. Instead, he stood in his opera box in full view of the crowd for a good 10 minutes and cheekily said, "This would have been an opportunity to shoot. Come, let us go down. The ball seems merry and bright." He proceeded to go down the corridor towards the dance floor, when his assassin, former captain Jakob Johan Ankarström, slowly approached from behind and shot him. Shockingly, and rather embarrassingly, Ankarström managed to miss the king's vital organs, despite the close range and military experience. Gustav was rushed from the opera and all members of the conspiracy were arrested. Though he didn't die at first, the wound became infected, and he died of sepsis 13 days after the attack. From leading a coup to being beloved, to going to war to being murdered, Gustav's life was filled with many dramatic ups and downs. But really, who's surprised? He did enjoy the theater after all.
Gustav skål, den bäste kung som Norden äger, han ej tål att viktskål nog jämt väger.